Hello, welcome to our Fiber Fairy Friday cherry blossom tutorial. We have an elaborate, it's like elaborate but not hard. So it's a rather big project with many components that were based on our big Fiber Fairy giveaway in March of 2025. So what we're going to do is go through the supplies, go through the tools needed. I'm going to go over the project and what's involved, and then we're just going to take it step by step. And you can go through the video, make sure you understand what you need and what's happening and that you have the skill set, and then rewatch it and work along with me. I have fiber from a giveaway. This to date does not have a supply pack. So I'm going to go through all the fiber so you can make sure to create a list. Maybe you have stuff on hand. There can be substitutions. The thing about this art form is there's a lot of ways to get to the same spot, or even slightly different if you have a different idea for what you want to do. So this involves a 2D background and a 3D branch and bird. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, let's start with the giveaway fiber. And I'm just going to open it all and list everything. And I'm going to use the overhead camera so that you can see everything clearly. Then I will talk about the tools, and then I'll go over the, just the step, kind of the process, the step by step, and then we're going to get started right away. Kyla is with me, and she's going to help me drive this bus. Let's see. At first, I want the list. Okay. So the first tier in the giveaway, or one of the first things we need, is a piece of flat mat. This is a pre-felt, and I'm using a piece that is approximately 12 by 15 because our board is 11 by 14. So it's going to shrink a little bit. So we have our flat mat. Then I have 2 colors of core wool, about 3 feet or 30 inches each. I have chick yellow. This is primarily for the bird. If you don't have chick yellow, you can use off-white chunky core or even a green. I like making a green bird against the pink cherry blossoms. And then this is charcoal, and this is great for the branch and a few other things. I use it in a few places. So that's where we're starting. And then the next bundle, this is for the background. So this is some sage tussa silk. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Okay. This is sage tussa silk. And then we have hush, water, and tulle merino. These get blended together in kind of a variety of ways and make the background. So I will go over that step by step as well. It's nice to keep your colors together if you do have the Fiber Fairy colors, because they, like, this is for the background, this is for the flowers, they relate to each other. So it'll just help keep it organized. The next bundle is for the bark of the tree branch. We actually wet felt it. So it makes a super nice textured skin that you can just wrap around your tree branch, and it gets very realistic looking. So I have a soft fruit, mulberry silk. I have fog tussa silk. This is, we did put walnut. some walnut. This is a walnut. This is a top coat. And then we have coffee and beaver merino. Our next bundle is for the flowers. Lots of pinks. The belt is a powder tussa silk. And then we have natural merino, bridesmaid, and raspberry. So these will give us a really nice variety from white to deep pink. You can make your cherry blossoms kind of any variety in there. There are white ones, and then there are super, super bright pink ones. And the last bundle of fiber is some colors for leaves and our little bird. This is, oh my gosh, greater bird of paradise. These are all plumage. So this is greater bird of paradise. This is rainbow lorikeet, and this is green parrot. And the plumage line is a blend of silk and merino. So it's great for wet felting, and it works as a nice top coat for needle felting. And we also use these in the leaves. One more little bit of fun goodness that was in the Fiber Fairy is a bag. And the bag has a piece of Kyparina pre-felt, nice and bright for our foliage. We have hankies. This is cyclamen, this color. I have some, what's this color called? Oh, shell. This is sari silk waste. Super fun texture and a nice sort of muted color that brings your pinks together with your background. This is a acrylic and I think it's acrylic and mohair. I forget exactly what this fiber is, but this is a really fun yarn. It has some texture. It needs a layer on it to wet felt. I'll go through that and you'll see, but this is included, and that gives a real good texture to your bark. And then you have some green 26 gauge wires, and these are for making our little flower bundles for the branch. Okay, so that is everything. Well, let me show you the board. That was in the Fiber Fairy giveaway, and or that you could use for the project. Like I said, you can get there a number of ways. The last component of the giveaway is this 1-inch piece of rigid foam that is cut to the right size to fit into an 11 by 14 cradled panel. This is a really great way to build a 2D piece that might have a relief or 3D element. So we're providing that in the giveaway, and then you can experiment with it in all kinds of ways. And then this is called a cradled panel. I actually did a little finish on this, but yours will just be natural wood, and then you can paint it however you'd like. They are used for painting this way, but we're using it as a little support structure and frame for the project. Now I'm going to pull this finished piece into frame overhead so that I can go through and show you where we're heading with all of this. And you can see behind me, I took the whole thing larger and there really is kind of no limit to what you can do and how you can use this. And even this piece, you could do vertically. You don't have to do in the portrait format. Okay, so this is my foam under here. This is the wet felted background. This is one of the first things that we're going to make, this background. And then at the same time, we're going to wet felt flowers the bark, and the leaves. Then the wet felted background gets tucked around the foam, and you can see that that panel is just acting like a little liner inside this frame. This is a ready-made 11 by 14 frame. I love it. We'll try to link that in the description. It just works really well with this color palette, and it matches the branch, and I like, and it was affordable, which framing is, if you've looked into framing recently, you know it's gotten pretty expensive. We're going to build the branch with wire, and I'm going to go over a few extra things that you need. And we make all these little flower clusters. Now, it is tedious, but it's also super satisfying because when it comes together, it's a lot of fun. It's really pretty. I made a little bit more of a complex branch. You could go like a more Japanese style and just have it be one, kind of really simple branch with a ton of flowers on it. But like I said, you could go this way. I could even just take this little bird and put him this way. So lots of options for how this can look, but that's basically it. So it's involved in the sense that there's a lot of components, but it's simple in, it's all doable. I feel like this would be I feel like a 2 could do this if a level 2 felter, if they watched and,
Little fussy with the flowers.
Little fussy with the flowers. That's true. Not sure how centered that is, but there we go. Okay, so in addition, I have some hand carders, although you can hand blend. I have impasto, which is an acrylic, like kind of gel like medium, creates texture. We are using this. We love our Power Wax, cold wax, water-based cold wax medium, but that is going through, at this time of filming, a transition, and we haven't been able to get it. So this is the alternative. This is what is on this branch, and it works really well. And you do want something just to tie those flowers and flower bundles and branch ends down. It makes it really, really easy. I have some 14 gauge wire. I have one 18-inch and two 22-inch. It's just a place to start. Again, this could be any way you want it to be. And I have some 22 gauge wires. These are handy for little anchors for the branch. We're going to make the bird on the 22 gauge wire. So a few of those is good to have. Of course, I have my felting surface and needles, and I have a wet felting kit. I have a few other tools. You're going to be able to find something around the house that works, but we need something to poke through the foam, and even the snips work, or a pair of scissors. We also need to poke through each little flower for the wire, and then some kind of scraper or flat tool for shoving the wet felting around the foam into the panel. This little guy worked really well. I think that's the overview. The first step is to wet felt. So I'm just setting up a little wet felting station. This is a good intro to wet felting. It has a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of different things going on. And our flat mat is our background. And I'm going with a sky, and almost as if you're looking through more of the tree, like into the distant sky. So the first thing I'm going to do is tease up this pre-felt. I want to loosen some of this fiber so that the fiber that I lay on it felts and grabs right into that. And you can do that with your fingers or with a dog brush or a little brush. The little brush is nice because it also kind of stretches flat mat out a little bit. All right, that should do it. And I like creating a little bit of a vignette look. So the first thing I'm going to blend is going to be a nice light background. So I'm going to use the tulle and the hush and maybe even a tiny bit of white or natural. So I just want to load up a carder, or I'll show you how to hand blend as well. I'll do it both ways. You don't want to totally overload the carder because it just makes it hard to manage. And then I start with tip to tip and kind of scoop. And then every time I scoop, I go a little further in the carder. And so it's transferred all the fiber onto this one. And now I do it this way. Okay, if we're doing it by hand, it looks like this. Just going to stack up thin pieces, manageable thin pieces. And really by stacking it like that, I've almost already blended it. Especially since our background is kind of nondescript, and this is, if there's some slight variation in your color, it's not a bad thing. All right, this is going to go down into the center. And I want even coverage, thin but even. So now I want to go just a little darker, just slightly darker. I happen to have some of that color left over, so I put that on there, and then I'm going to add more tulle. And water. And a tiny bit of sage. The sage tussa is just going to kind of counteract with the purple of the hush and make a nice neutral. This I want to blend a little bit better because the water is on the vivid side relative to everything else. And I need to do that again. So I'm doing some water, a little bit of hush, some of the tulle, and a tiny bit of sage. Yeah, the background in the reference image, it's just real blurry and vague, distant sky. Okay, so now I have 2 carders full, or sort of two handfuls of this mix, and I want to get the rest of my surface covered. I'm just, like I said, thin but even. And if the fibers are a little bit kind of crisscrossy, that's good. Then it'll wet felt evenly. And I can interrupt the center a little bit. It doesn't have to be like a big circle. Looks like I need a little bit more. I'll do this one by hand.
You would need maybe 6 of those by hand if you were to.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, you can blend until you have enough. But yeah, that sounds about right. Okay. It's looking good. Oh, that's a little vivid. Okay, now I want to get some pink on here. I also want to throw in some of this yarn because then it looks like more distant branches. So a nice way to do that is to maybe start with 3, twist them together, let it be random, and then just let these kind of branch off. And you can have an idea about how you want this oriented, but it kind of just comes together no matter what you think what you think you want, and then it just appears in the end and you'll realize, oh, it looks better tipped this way or that way. I kept thinking I wanted my branch coming down, and then I ended up putting it going up. This one, I've got it more coming down. Anything goes. Something like that. Just a few pieces. And then we want to create a blurry blossom background. So to do that, I'm going to do a little bit of green as if there's tiny bits of foliage. So this is the rainbow, this is the plumage, the lorikeet. And I'm just going to take a little piece of it, section. That's what we're using for our bird. And I'm going to cut it up because I want it to be real flecky and random. My problem right now is I can't see that. so I don't know what this kind of mimics. Some leaves back there. The cherry blossoms, they flower first and then they leaf out. And the flowers have about like a 2-week lifespan. I know Kyla's full of cherry blossom facts and information.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
dying to share. All right. This, like I said, the shell sari silk waist. This is another great blender. It is hard to pull apart, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut her. I might need fabric scissors, but let's see if this works. So I can either cut this up or spread it out in there randomly. It's going to give a nice texture to the pink areas. So I'm kind of spreading it out where I think I want some pink. One more bit. up here. Okay. And then we have also from the baggie, I want one little piece of the hanky that I want to cut up and fuzz out a bit. So the hankies they're actually like a silkworm cocoon that they've dyed and stretched. So that's why you have this kind of thicker edge and thinner center. But I do want to cut this down so that you end up kind of fighting with it if you try to work right from the whole hanky. So this again is more texture. I'm going to put it over the sari silk waist spots to make more cherry blossom poofs. That these are in the distance. They're a little blurry. So I'm fuzzing it out so that it's not too much of a strong impact. And I don't want it to I want it to be fuzzy because it's in the background and you don't want it to compete with the crispness of the 3D branch.
It's also a great way to tell how dry your skin is.
Oh gosh, especially this time of year. This is releasing in the spring, but it's February. An odd number is good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let me just put another little section here. It's a subconscious thing. There we go. Now, on top of this, I need some merino because silk does not wet felt. So we've got a layer of merino, 2 layers of silk on this yarn, and now we need to put a thin layer of merino on top so that it all holds together. So I'm going to blend some of my pinks. I'm going to take these background colors from our first bundle and just kind of tuck them away. We might use some more out of here, but so I want to blend a little bit of raspberry. Let's use this. Just stick that on there. Raspberry, powder, no, bridesmaid. These are my merinos. And let's put a tiny bit of powdered silk in there. Okay. When I was working on the big one, I just kept like knocking stuff all over the place. And again, I don't need to overblend. I just want to get it going. Back in place. And then I'm going to cut this too because it can be a little too, this is pretty nice and long, and I don't want it to be too linear. I want it to end up fuzzy. So I'm going to cut this piece into about 3 1-inch pieces and then take those and tease them out and thin them out over the silk bunches. And I want it nice and thin because I want the silk texture to show. If you glom it on top, then you won't get any of the silk coming through. Alrighty. And try not to have these poofs all the same size and shape. Make some smaller, some bigger. It's hard. It's like whenever I paint clouds, they all end up the same. I don't know why I'm leaving this bald spot down here. But like I said, sometimes it just ends up making sense, even though you don't realize it.
You sort of did that on the other one.
It's like some sort of weird...
It's all right.
Mental
way
block.
It's supposed to be.
Okay, so we have our background. We're going to need these pinks again. Now I have, and you will probably have, some of this mix left. Hang on to it. We want it for our little flowers. All right, I'm going to put this up out of the way. And next, I'm going to make a section. I'm going to use this section. This is kind of the layout. It's going to be your background, a piece of bark, a piece of green for the leaves, and then all your flowers. So for the bark, I got my bark colors here. And I want to lay out a crisscross layer of coffee. I think. Yes. So to lay out your fiber for wet felting, you're going to hold the roving and grab only these wispy tips. And that's going to give you a nice thin, I think of it as a brush stroke. You don't want great big clumps of fiber. You don't need that much and it ends up clumpy. So if you can just grab those very tip ends and pull, you're going to get a nice brush stroke of fiber. And I'm going to put a few layers or a few strokes kind of angled one way and then a few going herringbone style going the other way. With a little bit of overlap. Thin but consistent. And then let's go back this way.
This is actually like a whole intro to wet felting.
It is a whole intro to this whole thing is an intro to a lot of things. The little bird, we made the cardinal and dove. Check out the cardinal and dove tutorial. We build exactly the same way. I think we threw a chickadee in there too. Mm-hmm. So you can put any bird you want on the cherry blossom. Okay, I am trying to leave a little bit of bubble wrap border because it does get messy if everything's just spilling right off the bubble wrap. So that was about half of my piece of my length of coffee. It was 18 inches. So yeah, so that's about 9 inches left. Just to give you an idea of how thin this is and how much area it's covering. Okay, now I want to make a blend. And I'm going to blend coffee, beaver, soft fruit, and fog. All right. Coffee, beaver, just the perfect, like not too brown, not too gray color. These are all in the bark bundle. The soft fruit gives it that cherry tree, cherry wood color. And then the fog, oh, good grief, I just made a mess of that, is like a neutralizer. Okay. You could throw some walnut in there if you want, but the walnut top coat is great for when you're building the branch. It's like your wool glue that's going to help you make sure all your branch components are felted well. Yeah, if ever, I mean, we're always saying watch the tutorial and then work with me. This is definitely a good one, right? To watch first and then. So now I'm going to lay it out on here real thin. I want all those wacky colors showing. I want it to be very random. The great thing about wet felting this bark is that you can make this awesome random, and then it gets textured like it, and you're letting the fiber do the work for you. Sorry, we're having a lot of walking dogs today. And now I'm going to use this yarn, and this also can be random because this basically we're making like a bark skin. It's going to get wrapped around the branch. So the yarn's going to end up doing all different things. It doesn't need to be going in one certain direction.
Put on a hefty amount.
I'm putting a little bit on there. I just want it to be, it's just so cool. Okay, and then now, this yarn needs wool on top of it to really secure it down. So then I do need a little bit more of that blend, because then we want to put that blend back on top. So I'm putting some more coffee, a little bit of soft fruit. Ooh, it's getting staticky in here. Beaver. And, jeez Louise, fog. Just real thin so that we're not entirely losing that texture that we just added. So I'm really stretching it out like a little spider, like a real thin web. It's a little heavy on the red, so I'm going to find a spot that doesn't have it. All right, this is good to save because when we get into our tree branch, you know, maybe we want a little bit of extra wool for tacking. And sometimes to get the wet felted part to stick, you got to add some unfelted wool on top and needle felt it in. So I'm going to put all of that in a pile. Okay, that is finito. We have our little piece of pre-felt, and I want to tease up the wool a little bit. Now, I got to be honest, I did not do this in my trial.
Well, you had these.
I had green pre-felt. So I'm hoping that the what is experimental right now is the rainbow lorikeet just felting right. Like, does it just felt right into that? We're going to find out. If it doesn't, there's going to be an addition to the supplies. So very thin. It's practically the same color. So I just want it thin on there so that it has a little shine and texture to the leaf. Now, what I can do to help me is stab it a little bit. this is going to ensure that when we wet felt, it comes together properly.
So the question will be asked if someone wants to needle felt all of these components as opposed to wet felting them. Could that be done?
Yes. Ton more work.
A lot more work.
Gosh, no, the flowers. I don't know.
You're going to want a wet felt.
You're going to want a wet felt. You're going to want to...
And the silk does the coolest thing.
It does. It really does. It's a totally different project. I'm trying to think if we have an entirely needle felted flower. I don't, even our flower tutorials, we wet felt. And you could make a different kind of tree. Yeah. I mean, we have a flower tutorial. That's great. It's all built the same way. And we have a tree tutorial, which is what we're elaborating on. So tons to discover and try. Okay, background, bark, leaves. Now we're going to make flowers. And I've come at this a bunch of different ways. And they all work. But I think what I'll do today is we're going to do a carder full of natural bridesmaid and powder. This has the raspberry in it. It's a little darker. So I want a nice light color. I've been making the flowers lighter on the back and slightly deeper on the inside of the cup. I think the blossoms, we also have to make the buds. I mean, we don't wet felt those, but that's exciting. The blossoms start out on a lot of cherry blossoms, a real deep pink. And then as they get older, they lighten before they fall off. So it's okay if your flowers have a variety of color to them.
Cherry trees only last 15 to 20 years.
Yeah, they're not long living and they're not super strong.
Mm-hmm.
There was some tidbit of information that I came across, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but it was fascinating that the Cherry Blossom Festival, I think it's called, in Washington, D.C., didn't happen. I feel like it was established in the late 1800s or mid to late 1800s, and then it didn't happen during World War II. And then when it came back, it was like 100,000 people or some just huge.
You had said that
huge
even
number
more.
Of people. Okay, so I have a nice big poof here. I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half because I just want these fiber lengths to be manageable. And then I wanted to make small circles. I don't know how to describe this amount of wool. It is a thin amount of wool. And just make little circles. And you want to have about 15 to 20. Somewhere I have some flowers. Where did they go? Here they are. This is what they end up like. This is one. This is how small they get. And then this is it on a wire. So you can see where we're headed with that. Take advantage of this space up here. It's like putting cookies on a sheet tray.
We need to go on a Hanami picnic.
Ooh, what's that?
It's a little flower viewing. Hanami means flower viewing.
Mm.
It says this tradition began with emperors and members of the imperial palace feasting under the blooming cherries branches. Little picnic.
Mm-hmm. Sounds lovely.
So the first cherry trees were planted in 1912.
Oh, I thought it was earlier than that. Okay, 1912.
Over 3,000 trees
Wow.
were shipped from Yokohama to Seattle and then taken to DC.
I feel like there was a holdup. I feel like they wanted to do it sooner. Like, I think it was a woman who was like trying to get this to happen. I should have written this stuff down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That's pretty good. I'm going to go with that. If they get too close, they get all stuck together. Now, sometimes I have made them with a cut up piece of hanky on them. And then when you do that, you have to do a little bit more poof. Now, remember I had this darker blend left from our background? That's what I want to put on the top. If you don't feel like fussing with the hankies, you can just put a real thin layer of this right on top. It's like we're building little pastries. If you do want to, then you're going to cut up your hanky into squares, into small squares. I've done it both ways, and there's not a huge difference between the two, especially because we have some silk in our blends. So we're already getting a nice silky effect. Make some I love that, like, there's darks in some spots and lights in some spots. I'm being random. I'm doing some with and some without, just so you can see the difference.
It was Eliza Skidmore.
Okay.
Who worked for 24 years. She approached every new...
Like, what an amazing vision.
Yeah.
And like, just to be like, I want this specific thing.
She had this proposal that Japanese cherry trees would be planted along the Potomac waterfront.
Yeah, that's amazing. I wonder where that came from. Like, what?
She was a world traveler. And went to Japan.
That was kind of a remarkable thing to be at that point in history.
In 1909, she decided to try to raise the money to purchase the trees.
Did she have any, I wonder if she had any kind of political or capital like connections that this was...
Yeah, she wrote to the First Lady, Helen Taft. Mrs. Taft had lived in Japan and was familiar with the cherry trees. Ooh, she wrote a letter and got a response in 2 days.
I'm going to take a thin strip of the raspberry, which is this dark pink, and I'm going to cut short a little pile of 1/2 inch, probably, I'm still on camera, good, 1/2 inch poofs, And I'm going to tease these out and put them in the center of the flowers. And interestingly, it looks like a cherry on top, which is what we're doing. Just trying to keep it random. I don't want it to be too lined up.
Oh no, in 1910, after all these steps of this ambassador and this person, 2,000 trees arrived.
Okay.
In 1910. To everyone's dismay, an inspection team from the Department of Agriculture discovered the trees were infested with insects and were diseased. They had to be burned.
Oh gosh. I didn't come across that part.
But then in 1912, 3,000 trees arrived in D.C.
Look, I cut just the right amount. Whew, that is your wet felting layout. Isn't it exciting? And then when it's all wet felted, you get to put it all together. So now we're going to wet felt. I have some hot water with Dawn in it, but I also have some of our olive oil soap here. Just getting some of this fuzz off of here. And my wall is covering everything. Okay. This is going to take the most water. These things are the best. Remember before we had these?
You just have to sort of slop it on your hand.
Yeah. So when it has enough water, you can tell because there won't be any like poofy, airy spots. So like this is not wet enough. But you don't want it to be like this is all poofy, but you don't want it to be so wet that water's like sloshing on the floor and making a big mess. It is very possible to wet felt without making a mess. Now the little flowers are on the dainty side, so they don't take too much water. Just a gentle press with your hand, you can assess. Yeah, by the time I move this water around, it's probably going to be enough. Get this one more time. I'm using a lot.
You are. I hope people are excited to wet felt.
We're always met with a little bit of dubious resistance. Okay, now I want to sprinkle some water on my hands and get them nice and soapy and see what's what here. In terms of how much more water is needed.
So far, it's about half a Pizza Hut pitcher.
half a Pappy's. Did you ever go to Pappy's?
No, I don't know Pappy's.
Or charcoal pit?
Oh.
So with soapy hands, your hand kind of just moves right on top, which is good because the fiber hasn't bonded to itself yet. So you don't want a ton of friction. You want it to move on top. And you can feel if there's enough water. Everything should just kind of press down real nice. So I have a little puddle of water over here, but that's okay. It'll be all right. So this is good. This is a good amount of water. So now I can just use my hands and start gently pressing to begin to encourage the fibers to come together. Thanks, Kyla. And the fiber, if you're using this voile, it will migrate up through the voile, which is okay. At some point, once this is starting to feel a little more firm under your hands, we're going to lift the voile up to make sure that it's not all entangled. And then after that, it doesn't do it again. It's just an initial phase kind of thing. So I use my whole palm, not just my fingertips or anything like that. Ooh, I like this. It's gonna be fun. Takes a few minutes. It's hard to describe once you do this a few times, you can tell when it goes from squishy to starting to adhere to itself. Like you can feel it.
Doesn't take
too long.
Amount.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like they want to stick together. You can see all this pink coming through. The flowers are the fussiest part of this entire project, which you will soon find out. They're a little fussy the whole way. Laying them out, wet felting them, building them onto the stems, but it is rewarding in the end, I think. Okay, so now I don't know how many minutes it's been, but in real time, you can see where I am with this, and I'm going to lift the voile off entirely. And it's a little bit of a pain in the butt, especially on the little flowers. So I'll start on a corner, and then I just peel my wool back and hold it so that it does not travel with the voile, because it is a little stuck. But like I said, we do this now and then you don't have to do it again. This is where it gets tricky, because every little flower needs to be on the big one behind me. I think it has 100 flowers or more.
How's the leaf fiber sticking?
I think okay. I think the needle felting was a good idea. There we go. That's it. Just make sure these are all where you want them to be. Now, if you're going bigger for whatever reason, you can do 2 rounds. You could do your background on one, and then your bark and your leaves on another, or all your flowers on one. But for this size, it does work to have them all on the same piece of bubble wrap. So now I can start to roll. If you've wet felted with us before, you know that you roll from each direction. So I'm going to roll from this side, then this side, then this side, then this side. For this project, I'm going to do about 75 rolls on each side. And then then the flowers need to be finished individually, but the rest of it should be felted just right. So I might do a little bit more hand felting, depending. So to begin to roll, we want to put our pool noodle and then I want to take the bubble wrap all the way around. So it's on the outside, the wool and the voile. It's all rolled up nice and tight on the inside. I'm going to get some water squeezing out. That's what the towel's for. Then I'm just using my towel. You can tie your elastics around the roll, but the towel works. The towel works really well. Thanks. And then I'm going to roll kind of just from my wrist to my elbow 75 times. Okay, so we went all the way around. Let's see where we are. I did not see how it doesn't stick anymore. I mean, the flowers might still a little because they're tiny, but I did not turn things over, which I usually do, but I think we're okay. So now I can just I could just work these by hand a little bit just to make sure it's where I want it to be. Meaning, thank you. With soapy hands, I'm just gonna, you can even roll them against themselves at this point. Be a little more aggressive. Just usually whichever direction you go, you want to also go the other direction because it will shrink the direction that you are aggravating it. So now if I go this way, it's going to make this shorter. Yeah, that feels pretty good. It should all be well stuck together. Feel nice and like tight and firm in your hand. I love this bright green color. Yeah, that worked.
Looks good.
Mm-hmm. And help me felt some flowers. You don't have
what
to.
everyone needs is an assistant. I certainly will.
I think I didn't get this quite wet enough, but it's good now. Just of the things, this feels the most squishy.
No.
The least well felted. Gosh, that's pretty. I like that a lot. Okay, so the flowers are the little tricky ones. Just in your hand, they need a little bit of back and forth. And then I go in a circle on the bubble wrap. And then it's just going to tighten right up. So it goes from this size to this size. And that's all you got to do for each one.
Yeah.
It really doesn't take that long. But it's the initial hand felting gets it started. The rolling is we're sticking it together, and then this is getting it into the size and shape that you want. And they're not going to be perfect circles, and you don't want perfect circles. You want them to, when they're not perfect circles, they kind of mimic the petals, because we're not really making individual petals. Alrighty, now that everything is wet felted, I'm going to take it to the sink and rinse hot, cold, hot, cold. Hot as your water gets, cold as your water gets. And that just kind of finalizes the hot water, like opens the fiber a little bit, and then the cold water shuts it down. And when it closes down, it doesn't like open back up. It's more fully felted. And when I do that, I'm going to be, again, a little bit aggressive with the fiber as I'm doing that. And then when that's done, we have a spinner, but you can take all your nice and clean, no more soap left, wet felted pieces, and just roll them in a dry towel, and they will air dry, especially if the sun is out, very quickly. So then you'll be ready to start building. All right. I'm going to go rinse. Okay, I have everything rinsed. I just wanted to show what it looks like and how I'm going to shape these flowers. So you can see a bit of the texture in the bark, and this wet felted nicely. The green. This is my background. I'm going to go ahead and stretch it out into a rectangle because they do tend to, shrink on the centers. And will you pass me the phone, please? And I can also just check that I have plenty of fiber to go around, which I do. I really can't see you shrinking this way too much unless you're just crazy aggressive about it. So should be good. And to shape the flowers, I have, I don't even know what this is from, this pointy little tool, but you could use a Zuli tool or a skewer, anything pointy, and you want to find the center of the darker side and place the tool in the middle and then just pucker the flower around the tool. Now this is also kind of making a little hole at the same time, but before I used the scissors and did the hole as another step. So with an awl or a pair of sharp scissors. But if you shape them while they're wet, then they're going to be they just stay that way. It'll be the perfect little shape and it's easier to work with. And then we're just going to let all of this dry. We are ready to build a branch and build some flowers and have all of that ready to go for our assembly. I haven't decided if I'm going to do the bird last. I don't know. I kind of want to get the whole thing put together and then make the bird. Okay. So I have two, I think they're 22 and 18 inch.
22 and 18.
So I'm going to take one of the 22s and just pull it down so that I have about 2 inches extra. And then this is what will just go through the foam to anchor your branch. And then the rest of it, I want to twist together. So when I'm twisting 3 things, I don't know why I use my right hand, but I just kind of fork them out and then I can get a finger behind each one and then I can twist them all evenly. It takes a little practice, but you do want them to come together in a nice even twist so that all 3 wires are turning. You don't just want 2 wires to wrap around 1 wire, because then that's not married really. And then from here, now I can go the other way. And I think I decided I was going to go a little simpler and maybe just have 1 fork at the end. So I'm going to let one of my shorter pieces branch off. And then I'm going to twist these 2 together. And then at the very end, just let them fork. Yeah, so I think that's all I'm gonna do for this one. And then I want to get some wire on here so that when I wrap it with the core wool, it grips. Now let's see, we have what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 6 green wires here. They get cut for the flowers into 8ths. Mm-hmm. So if I set 3 aside for that plus buds and leaves, that gives me 3 extra. I'm going to set 4 aside for that. So I have 2 extra wires. You could use some some other wire if you have it. But basically, you want to get a cloth covered wire onto your tree limb. And for some reason, I always twist my wires opposite of how I wrap, but that's all right. And then it's not a bad idea. Actually, let's do it this way. It's not a bad idea to use a 22 gauge because then I can have it, I can leave an end sticking off and have it be an additional anchor into your foam to help support the branch. So let me put one of these on there. I'm changing my mind, basically, is what I'm doing. And I'm wrapping it the right way. Normally, I would be real careful to make sure all my wires are going in the same direction, but this is going to get quite a bulky little wrap, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to leave this sticking off with the idea that that's going to help anchor my branch in the end. And then I do want to get more wire onto the rest of this aluminum wire. And it's nice if you kind of end with a nice thin wire rather than the chunky aluminum wire. One more little piece. Branches, they kind of go thick to thin. So every time they angle or branch off, they get a little skinnier and a little skinnier. So that's just an important visual to keep in mind as you're creating your branch. And then the other thing that you can do is pull your foam or your background into place and start to think about, what you want this to do, basically. And some curves are nice, some variety, just like straight is boring. So yeah. So now I need to get this covered with core. And I just like to work with a length that's comfortable. So maybe 12 inches. What? Am I good?
I just had a moment of, are we recording?
I'm going to split these in half. And I'm just going to start at the base and wrap tightly. So when I start wrapping, I let it brace against itself by going over the same spot a few times. Then it's well anchored and I'm pulling tight and reinforcing, as I go so that I have a nice tight wrap. The more tightly I wrap, the less I have to worry about any needle felting. And if you just follow that fringe all the way around, it will hold itself.
You don't do anything special at the fork. Just keep
on this
wrapping
pass, I'm going to wrap what I'm considering to be like the main branch.
Okay.
But then when I go up each little branch, I will do kind of an anchor to make sure it's coming off in a real centered, even way. Now, I don't want to get too thick towards the end because this is also going to get the bark on top of it. And these wires get kind of built up as we put these bundles of flowers on here. So I don't want to have a real thick, thickly wrapped branch all the way to the tip. I want it to just taper to nothing, because then when we put the other components on, it will thicken up. And it's another one of those subconscious things where if it's real chunky at the end, you know, the viewer's brain is thinking something's not right here. So I'm just working again. I want another layer on this. How thick you want your branch to be is up to you. I like the way that one was, so that's what I'm gonna go for. If you want to do an angle or like a weird little knob, you can do a little crisscross wrap and make some variation. The bark is going to add some width, but it will be easier for me to attach if this is a little bit thicker, like has a bit more wool on it. If I left this core really thin and then went to put the bark on, there wouldn't be very much to attach it to when it comes to doing a little bit of needle felting. So 2 wraps at least, I'd say. Do a little something weird here too. And again, I just want to taper out. This core wool is so great. It just sticks to itself. And then I'm going to work with an 8-inch piece pulled in half and get these other branches. So now I'm going to go around my branch and then around the offshoot. And then around the branch. And now I'm going to start wrapping up. And that's going to make sure it's really well integrated to the branch. This will probably just get one layer. So I'm letting it be a little thicker towards this end. And then I'm going to taper to nothing up here. Keep my ribbon real under a lot of control and a lot of tension. And that's what makes the wrapping smooth and solid. So just with the pressure of my fingers, that wants to stay.
It takes 3 to 7 years for a cherry tree to start bearing fruit.
And they only live for 20?
It's like a really long time. I think cherry trees maybe live longer.
Actual cherries.
Yeah.
Yeah. The cherry blossoms do have a fruit, but it's not. Nobody wants to eat it. The birds like them, I guess, is what I remember.
Yeah, sweet cherry trees, 10 to 15 years. Sour cherry trees are more like 20 to 25.
Oh, sweet cherry trees are even shorter. 10 to 15.
But then it's saying 50 to 60 years, a typical cherry tree. They're just very susceptible to a lot of diseases.
I feel like I want one more in here. So this is how much core I have left from approximately 30 inches. There's no, unfortunately, maybe for some, there's no certain number of inches that any of these need to be, this is really just have fun with it and see where it goes. If there's something that's important, I'm going to pass it along, like the idea of the branches tapering, like that's important. Having a little bit of weirdness in it, that's important. You don't want it too perfect, I guess. They do, different varieties do different things. Some have a little more like craggliness, and some have these like real smooth, sort of swooping branches. Why are my tables so jiggly today? I'm just making sure this is good and stuck in a few places. That's that. Piece of cake. But we need to build all our little flower leaves and buds, because those clusters get put on and then the bark goes on. I use my scissors on the 26 gauge, but if you're not good with that, my snips, you can use wire cutters. But I want to cut these in half. And then in half again, and then in half again. Does not have to be perfect, but you're going to end up with 2-inch pieces, approximately. And then I'm using the impasto, which is linked on our Goods and Faves page. We don't supply this, but you can find it very easily. And I'm going to hold on to that one for now. And if you have the old Power Wax, you totally can use that. But I'm using them interchangeably. But it's, this is kind of like the glue that helps everything stay together. I'm actually using it on a different project as like a decoupage. Mm. It works really well. And it's a little, it has more body. So it's just a paste, as you can see. So at some point I'll get a little bit out, but I'm going to wait on that for now. Okay, so to make the buds, we're going to use thank you. Where's my raspberry? Where's the pinks? Oh, right there, right smack in front of me. We're going to use the raspberry because we make these nice little dark buds. And you can make as many or as little as you want. But I like to pull a thin sort of 1/4-inch strip, and then I pull little 3-inch pieces. So that's 5. Let's just do a few more. Really, like the more you can make, the better it looks, but I'm trying to be realistic. And this takes a little bit of practice, but I, being left-handed, hold the fiber in my left hand. I anchor it about an inch down from the tip, and then I roll towards me. And then I keep this 1/4 inch ribbon, and I just keep rolling right in the same spot. And it makes this little bud. Now, I can try it right-handed. I don't think it's going to go well, but I will try. Okay, fiber in the right hand, anchor, twist towards me. I do not have this muscle memory in the slightest. I probably should zoom in too. Okay, that was not as successful. But that is the visual. So I'm going to show a few of these and I'm going to show a few leaves, and I'm going to show a few flowers, and then I'm going to leave you to it. Now, if you can't get this fiber to stay right here, then you're going to take your medium and you're going to put some on there, and you're just going to twist that in. Now, the reason I try to get some finished is because your fingers get sticky, and then, it's nice to have them all lined up. But this holds the fiber, it polishes it, it tightens it down, it finishes the little end. Okay, this is the bad one that I twisted the other way, so got to see what I can do with that. Yeah, it makes it, you don't have to needle felt. Just tightens it all on there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull out of the lorikeet. Will you make some sections for me?
How are you doing that with your fingers?
Well, I wasn't. I was going to try. I mean, I have in the past. Thank you. And if you're having a hard time with this stage too, it actually is a little bit helpful to put a little bit of the medium on the wire. So play around with this. You're gonna figure out what works, what method, in what order works best for you. So I have like sticky fingers, so I'm gonna put some on the wire. And then I'm gonna take a little section of green, about the same size, and just twist from the bottom up, and then let it overlap the bud. And then that looks like the little bud is blooming out of the green. And I turn it until all that fringe is gone, and then I put the impasto on that. Now, when this it can get chalky and white when it's starting to dry and you're bending the wool a lot, and that it kind of breaks up the seal and creates that opacity. So the smoother you can keep it, the better it's going to look. But I just work my way up and then let this encapsulate the bud. And seal it down. Okay. I'll keep making those for a bit, but I want to show you the flowers. I mean the leaves. So the leaves, you're going to cut just, let's see the best way to do this. You want to cut shapes that go narrow and then wide and narrow. And that's about 1 inch. And then this one little side is going to get wrapped onto a stem. So just put the stem at the base of the leaf. Now this time I'm going to start at the top because I need to get this stuck, and then I'm going to go down. So I take the wool. Well, maybe it works better to go up. Let me try. I forget how I did it. Let me twist up, get the stem covered. Yeah, this is going to work better. Then put the leaf base on the stem and go around that.
These are the fussy buds and flowers you were talking about.
These are the fussy bits for sure. Let's try something. Let's try sticking this. Well, might become a great big mess. But if we get, the problem is it's not sticky until it like dries just a little bit. Yeah, I think that's just going to be too messy. That doesn't work. But I try.
I did better wrapping than rolling.
You did better wrapping
I
than
did better
rolling?
wrapping than rolling. You make the rolling look very easy and efficient.
Yeah, that was on these little short wires. That's what works for me. Okay, that's leaves and buds. Fortunately, you don't need too many. So the flowers, I use the same little tufts of the green. I do the bud technique on the tip with the green. This is definitely the hardest part of the project. Even the bird isn't this hard. My flowers do have little holes in them. If they don't, you're going to take your scissors and just very carefully just put just the tip through there. You don't want a big hole because you don't want the flower to slide off of the whole thing. And then slide your flower up to the green bud and then wrap another piece. And again, if you can kind of encapsulate the bottom of the flower in the green, that's going to look real natural and secure it really well. And the impasto medium acts like a little bit of glue right there as well. All right, let's do that again.
Once you've made about 150 of them, it will also be very easy for you.
Oh my gosh, they are fussy. Some people revel in these. Sabine will love this.
Little details.
Mm-hmm. And Debbie. I don't worry about this being too perfect because this stuff hides. It just fixes it. It's like it turns it into, it's like it becomes more like a little piece of putty that you can shape. All right, we are going to make flowers, buds, and leaves and see you back here. I'm not going to tell you how long it took me. Nah, just enjoy it. It's satisfying once you get the hang of it. So Kyla and I worked together for about half an hour.
Yep.
About, not too crazy. Let's see how many flowers we made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We made about 24 flowers, which is a little more than we laid out. And you might find that you want to make a few more. When I made this piece, I made 60, and then I made another 60, but put about another 40 on. So on the cherry blossoms are all different, but they, in general, let me just zoom in a little bit. They come off in a cluster, which is nice because then you can kind of branch the flowers out so that they can be their fullest and they take up the most space and you can see everything. And I made a few clusters that are just buds, a few that have only flowers, a few that have both. I'm putting 4 to 6. It just depends how far you want them to go. I don't know if there's any super specific amount, like every cluster has 6 flowers. I couldn't determine that from looking at pictures and also from doing research online. But to make a cluster, you want a thin strip of the green, like we've been using, just a little 1/4 inch, about 3 inches long, 2 to 3 inches long. And then you take a few flowers. Let's say 4 to 5. I'm going to do 4 and a bud on this one. And then add a green wire. And I just overlap that about 1 inch. And this helps me wrap around the branch. If you're out of green wire and you have brown wire, black wire, whatever you have, white might be a little tough to cover up. And then I'm going to have some of this ready. Take a strip of green and wrap it right around that inch and then twist it on down. It doesn't need to go all the way down because the end of this wire is getting covered by the bark. And then put your impasto or cold wax on it and rub that in, and that holds it all together. I think we have another set here. Another 4. And then a few of the leaves, I'm just going to put, sometimes the leaves just pop right out of a branch or from the bark. So I'm just going to put those right into the bark. Okay, I get to put this away. make sure it's sealed up really well, because if it's not, it will dry out. And if it gets too gunky to seal up well, you can get some really hot water and just go around the edge, and or put it into a bag. But when the lid's locked down tight, then you're good. So I did use the impasto on that whole branch, which I think will do. I mean, it really it gives it a little bit of shine, and it's kind of cool. So, okay. For this project, this part of the project, I do want a felting surface, and I'm going to clear it off because the branch is a little all over the place. I need the bark. I need the, here's a little bit of that blend that we made. And then also that, can you reach that walnut? And I could even use some of the core if you have any left. Thank you. So the first part of the branch, I'm just going to wrap with bark. I'm not going to worry about, I might have a leaf come off here. I don't know, maybe one up here. But I'm going to put the flowers here, here, and here. Now, if I want to get an idea, I could even, let's see, I want to put one. One is going to have just buds at the end. So I'm just twisting the wires together there. We'll put one with flowers and buds at the end. And I want these to stick off quite, to be quite thin. Then you can decide where else you want your flower clusters.
When you look at all the varieties of cherry blossoms, there's definitely some that are super full. Others are a little more sparse.
So you can see how quickly you're like, oh, I made so many flowers, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
So I do want the green, like where that 1 inch that we wrapped, that does kind of stick off. I'm just trying to decide whether to put this. I think I'll put this a little further down. It does kind of stick off the branch, and then these open out from there. So that's about as full as I'm going to get on this. I might go back and make a few more flowers, but this way you can see how big your branch is, how they get used up. Now, another option would be for me to lose a branch and put, these two over here. But I do like three.
Nice,
yeah, 3 is nice. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is cut a strip of our bark. And down on this end, I'm going to work with about a 1.5 inch strip. And it's nice on this initial pass to let this felted edge be the edge that shows. So it always takes me a minute to figure out what direction I need to go to do that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap away from me, and I'm letting each one just overlap the last a little bit, and I'm covering up the cut edge with the felted edge. Now, that doesn't become as important as I get up higher. But it's so pretty. It's like nice and shiny. It has a ton of texture. I'm not worried about imperfections. In fact, I want them. So on the end here, I'm going to stab it a little bit. If I can get it to hold, then I'll just cut another strip and keep going. If not, I'll take a little bit of wool. Like I can take a little bit of this. The loose wool really helps hold the felted wool. And I can tighten that down and then felt it. Okay, now I'm going to take another strip. I'm going to take the other side that's nicely... Now this time I'm going to taper it because my branch is going to get thinner. So I took the other side that had the felted edge. Oh, I was going to stick a leaf in there. So to stick a leaf in there, you just put her in there, wrap it around one time, and then let it stick out the second time. So much fun. Like all of a sudden, all this stuff that you worked hard to make just starts becoming something fabulous. Let's put another leaf.
So cherry blossoms are edible.
Oh, cool. That's cool.
They do contain cyanide, so you should only have a little. That's what it says.
That's funny.
Once they're processed, it reduces the amount of cyanide.
Processed?
Well,
processed
like
by the body?
I think if you're making it into a tea or something.
Oh, okay. You're not like munching them off the tree. So now that we're into the thinner part of the branch, I'm going to cut a slightly thinner. I don't want to go too thin because then all I'm going to have is edge, but a slightly thinner piece of bark. The bark works really well on the bird's wings. I use a little piece of it on the bird's wings also.
There is a goddess of Mount Fuji and Blossom Princess. And now I have to say her name. It's long. Konohana Sakuya Hime.
Good job.
Thank you. She is the symbol of delicate earthly life.
I'm going to scoot this down a little bit because this is just too much space. I'm sorry. Okay, so what culture? That's Japanese?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just taking this thin piece of bark fabric and wrapping, but I'm going to stop here because I don't want this to get any thicker. So to finish this out, I can either use walnut or I can use a little piece of my carded wool, which I think I'll do. I'm just going to lengthen it out here. Or you could use charcoal, whatever's easiest for you. So on these little stems, I do like to go around, hopefully you guys can see, go around the big branch, then go around the stem. I'm going to do that again. It just makes the stem look more integrated and like it's coming out of the branch. So just with a really thin piece, you go around the branch, go around the stem. If you need to go around twice or do it in 2 steps, you can. And then to finish off the tip of a branch, I want to keep it nice and thin. But I do want to cover the screen, and I'm having some trouble here. Here we go. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I love the dark. I like this darkness, this dark color that we're using. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the impasto to seal the end up. And I'm actually going to impasto the whole thing, but I might make a few more flowers. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just forge ahead and have this one be what it is. But you can see how you can kind of like poof these out and position them, get it looking a little more full. All right, so on this branch, I'm going to use another piece of bark. I think I want to save, I'm going to save these 2 ends for my bird wings. So I'm just cutting this little 1 by 3 inch strip for my bird's wings. And sometimes you'll cut a piece of bark and realize that you need to trim it down or taper it more kind of once you get going. But I'm actually going to use this thin end. Let's see. Just to get it. There we go. It would be good to put a little leaf on here.
You really want those wrap marks.
I mean, they're kind of cool,
yeah.
Especially once you put the impasto on. It just, some of the cherry trees do have a lot of little nubs on their bark. So this, instead of being a big wide thing, I want it to taper, so. And then I'm going to switch to the wool.
So if people are interested, the National Park Service history of the cherry trees, super interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what I came across when I was looking stuff up. It's so, okay, so we've been planning this winter. It's now February. This Fiber Fairy is at the end of March. And this has been a really nice project to work on in the winter. Yeah. This got loose, so I'm going to put some wool on it.
Now, if people ran out of the blend, they should still have plenty to
I mean,
even
they
blend
could
up
make
more.
more. They could use the charcoal. They could use the walnut. It's a lot of options. Gosh, I love that soft fruit in there. Little red shine. This one, I think I'm just going to put wool on. I'm afraid if I put bark on there, it'll get too thick looking. But the cool thing is too, when you go to put your branch on your piece, like you can make this overlap. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it looks even fuller. Like you could do all kinds of stuff.
It's a good number of buds once you floof them out.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think this is definitely a case of more is probably better. You want the tree to look healthy but you have to balance your mental health with your cherry branch's health. Oh, I'm having just enough of this stuff. You want your all your little branch buds to be really well anchored, like, because you want to be able to position it and move it around. You don't want them just to be stuck on there with only a little bit of fiber or just a little bit of impasto, or you want them to be structurally well integrated. So if we go ahead and impasto this up, then it'll be dry tomorrow. Helps to have a palette knife. First, let me get this. I didn't do this tip yet. Did that one.
You just did it again.
That's fine. Did I do this one? I do this one. I can be a little reckless. Okay, this isn't pretty, I'm going to tell you. You just got to put it on there.
So worth it, though. It dries looking like an actual branch.
Yeah, and it's you have this stuff. It's like makeup sometimes, art supplies. They're sitting around, kind of getting old. You're like, oh, I never used that entire jar of impasto.
Make a bunch of branches.
But like this is just fun. All right, so my method is get a lot on there, then go back and get your fingers dirty. Kind of crazy. Wool is amazing. Have extra, because it kind of like sinks in. Like, you don't want it just to sit on the surface. That's when it can become kind of cracked and opaque looking. Do you wish you were doing this?
It is pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. It's satisfying. But you do want to have your general shape figured out. I mean, it'll still bend, but it's nice to know what you're going for so that you can encourage the shape while it's drying. I probably could have taken a second to really make sure all of this was tightened down.
It's about to be tightened down.
It's about to be, that's for sure. I hope Hugh never watches my videos. He's like a perfectionist. Did you know that?
He'd measure and check and recheck.
Well, he wouldn't be very happy about me dropping this on his table. That's for starters. Yeah, if it's not on there thick enough, it doesn't feel good. You'll feel it. Well, I kind of like that's like weird. I'm going to leave that little weird bump there. If it's not on there thick enough, it feels like you're dragging glue across, like.
You want it to be nice and slick.
You want it to be slick, yeah. And I'm sort of trying to follow the twist of the fiber. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I'm turning it around the direction that I wrap my fiber, just to encourage it all to lock down.
Now, people don't have to do this step.
Nope.
If they don't want to.
Nope. So like I said, if there's weird bumps, I'm leaving them. This will still move once I get the branch on. But I do want to kind of encourage what I'm going for here, which I think is something about like that. Okay, we have a dried branch here and all of our components ready to put them together. So I'm going to show how to do that next, and then we're going to make our little bird, and then you're finished. So I have options with this. I was playing around with vertical and horizontal. I think I'm going to do horizontal and bottom corner up to the top like this. So the first thing I want to do is get this situated around my foam. You pretty much can, you can't really felt it into the foam. It doesn't stick. But I think the way I did it was I just stuck this in here and then shoved the sides in, and that's what held it. Now I'm not going to go crazy because we need to make our holes and everything before we put it in there, but I do want to just see that it's going to fit properly. If you need to, you can just take a bread knife and just slice a little bit off, but you want enough room for the fiber to tuck in, but enough tension for it all to hold. And it's also possible. Now I haven't glued anything, meaning I haven't like glued the foam into the backing. Feel like it holds well enough, but you can see how with a tool I can press this fiber down in there. Now, if you have a ton of extra, you're going to want to trim it off, and we are going to want to trim these corners at an angle so that it's just not quite so much trying to tuck all around in there. So I'm going to cut it at an angle about a 1/2 inch from the corner of the foam. This is a little bit much, so I'm going to trim that down. Okay. And then I want to see where I have 2 anchor wires. I want to see where I want them to be. I think I want this one like right in the corner. And then with that, I can use scissors like these just to get through that, get through the felt. And then it will just push through the foam. But if you need to, you can take a tool. I don't want the scissors to go all the way through because they'll cut so much. But I can take a tool and just go a little farther through that foam to help the wire go through. And then let's just position that in there. Yeah, it's really going to stick once the wool is all tucked. I might trim these other wires a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to let that go through and then just fold it over. And then I want to see where I want this one to land. Like I could go a little side. I think I'll go a little sideways like that. Get the position of everything that you want. You can see that it kind of looks firm, but it still bends, which is nice. You can maybe about like that. You'll go up here a little bit more because it was looking a little empty up here. Yeah, I like that better. So yeah, play with it, see where you want things. And then I'm going to make a hole right here. Same way. Where's that? And then I'm going to feed this wire through. Fold that down. Okay, and now I can start tucking everything in. I do want to trim these. I have a couple of wires sticking out the end of my branch that I want to get rid of. And if I need to, I can put a little bit more bark around that corner, but I think it's going to be okay. Okay, so I have everything centered, and I'm going to start tucking this fiber in, and that will hold everything in place. It's probably good to do one side and then come around and do the other, because it does pull on itself a little bit, and you want to make sure that you, it's kind of like stretching a canvas. You want to make sure you do it evenly on both sides so you don't end up with one side too short. I don't have an extra frame to show, you know, putting it in the frame.
Oh.
If you don't have the tools you need to put this into your frame, I'll show you the back. It's not complicated. Well, there is one special tool, but you could probably take it somewhere if you had everything, and they hopefully wouldn't charge too much to do it. Yeah, it's really works well. It just kind of sticks it in there.
So you could use any kind of putty.
A screwdriver,
like a small
even.
putty knife. Okay, flat screwdriver.
Mm-hmm. Just getting rid of, there's a lot, so. Because you don't want it to show. I mean, you could also just hang it like this. Mm-hmm. You know, you could put a wire on the back.
It could sit on a shelf as well with the wide edge.
I don't know if this if it might
fall
tip
forward
with the yeah, I don't know if it would be too weighty. I'm being careful to get the tool beyond the edge of this. Like, I don't want to ding or damage the panel. So I'm kind of pressing in towards the foam. It has a little bit of give to it, so.
It does not look like it's wanting to go anywhere.
I know. It's definitely stuck. It's like shoved now. So this side is going to be tough. Get rid of some of this bulk. Like, it's so tight. I could have taken like a little bit more off the foam probably, and it still would be really well stuck.
You definitely don't want it not stuck enough.
Right. I mean, if it were not stuck enough, there's stuff you could do, but yeah, that's not going anywhere for sure. And if there's like loose spots, you can shove it. You can take this and like shove it down further. Now we just have to make a little green warbler. That's what we're doing next.
You could also do a nest. You could do a little sprite. So many different things.
So this bird it's simple. We make it without legs. So if you want to make a bird with legs, you can check out our songbird tutorial. So this is based off of the tutorial I told you about that has a chickadee and the cardinal and the dove. You can find.
It's on the felt-along.
It's a felt-along?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm cutting a 22 gauge wire to 5 inches, and this is going to make a little frame for our birds. And I want to take an inch and bend a head, but I want to make this a little bit round. It doesn't need to be a sharp bend. And then I'm going to go about an inch down and make a rounded curve. This will be the chest. So you can look at it this way if you're.
How long is that wire again?
5 inches.
5 inches.
Yeah. So we're making an S with a long tail. This is about, from the curve to the end of the wire is about 2 inches. Yeah, so you got 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and 2 inches. And then the first thing I want to do is wrap the beak. I can use a walnut or charcoal from our supplies that we used for the bark. And I have a thin, it's kind of 2-inch piece here. And the warblers have a tiny beak. What did you say? They're eating insects?
It says they eat insects and they need to be able to poke in.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a finch that eats more seeds.
They're trying to crunch
so it has
stuff.
a bigger, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to go out and back with this thin strip of this walnut. And don't worry about how long your beak is, because we're going to build the head over this. So we're going to, end it wherever we want to end it. So mine's pretty much going the whole inch of that head, just out and back. And then I do want to go ahead and shine this up with some impasto before we build the rest of the bird. It's not going to take much here. Oh my gosh, this has become it's become a mess. So I want to try to just keep it on that last 1/2 inch because I got to be able to stab into the rest of it. So I'm only doing the tip 1/2 inch. Okay. Using our chick yellow, we're going to build our bird body. It's just a lot of wrapping. I'd say work with 6-inch halves. Let's go ahead and pull 4 of those. And I like to stretch them out so that the fiber's really nicely aligned and ready to wrap. So let's wrap the head first. Just going to stay on this top part of the curve. This is a lot of wool. I'm keeping my ribbon narrow so that I can control where it goes. Things get out of control when you let this get broad because you can't target where you want it to go. So with some tension, I'm keeping it under 1/2 inch. And I'm doing what's called a crisscross wrap. So I'm going over the top and then around the back. And then over the top, whoops, I just drafted a little bit too much. And around the back. And I'm skipping the back of this fold or this bend. Yeah, this is a lot of wool.
It's lofty.
It is lofty. So 4-inch strips, maybe even quartered, would be better. So I'm going to do that because that was a lot. And that just builds a little bobby head. So I'm going to re-pull my wool because that was a lot, and see how it works better for you. All right, so that's more like a 4 or 5-inch strip, and this time I'm going to quarter it, and I feel like that's going to be a more manageable. Like I'm able to control that, but if I'm having a hard time with it, I know it's too much. This is better. Okay, and now I just want to take one and go all the way along the rest of our wire, keeping it nice and tight, following with my other hand as a backup as I go.
Warblers migrate in spring. Where you'll see them more often, which fits with the branch that's in bloom.
Yeah, that's awesome. They have a cool shape. They kind of do this triangular, like they're real sharp across the wings and tail, and then they have a lot of belly. So that's why we have this nice S curve going on. All right, so now we want to take one and do the crisscross wrap to start to build up the body here. So I'm going to go around what we're going to call the neck and then cross over the back and go. I'm making an infinity around these 2 points. So I'm going under the butt and then around the neck and then under the butt and then around the neck. Just get that stabbed a little bit. I really want to keep this, that's about 1.5 inches at this point. I really want to keep that without more wool on it. Okay, let's do that again. And they don't really have a neck, so we want to eliminate that with another piece of wool.
A group of warblers is called a bouquet.
Aw, that's awesome. I love that.
Occasionally a confusion.
Okay, we're going to eliminate neck by wrapping some wool around it. And then maybe go over the back and under the belly here. Just keep your ribbon nice and smooth, consistent. Definitely check out a little reference picture. It's going to help you. And just slowly add and build to make their little roundness. They're so cute. I need more. I'm going to use another piece. This is one of my 6-inch pieces. So I'm really going to draft it out because it was only a half. meaning it wasn't as thin as the quarters. Now this might be a bit much, but I'm going to keep wrapping in crisscrosses until it looks nice and round and full. Yeah, it's looking good, especially once I get wings and tails and some colors on there. So notice I'm stabbing like down on the back. If I always just stab at the side, it's going to turn into a little pancake. So we got to shape it. The stabbing, like, you know, sculpts. So we've got to shape it how we want it here. Yeah, they end up they can end up, depending what position they're in, kind of straight from their head to their top of the tail. So that's where the triangle is. It's like this. So let me get just a little, well, the wings are going to go on there. I think that'll fill it in. That's the trick with needle felting. You got to imagine what wool is going where. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is put a little white on the belly, and I'm going to use the natural white merino, and I'm going to pull a thin strip, and I'm going to shingle it. If you haven't shingled yet, you're about to. I'm just going to let the fringe go onto the tail. And this staple length is about 3 inches. So I'm going to stab the center 1 inch in place. So I've got 1 inch coming onto the tail, 1 inch on the belly. And then the last inch, I'm going to fold over and stab that down. And I'm going to do that one more time. So I really don't want this to be longer than a staple length of fiber. So all of this fiber pretty much is lined up at the same place. If it's not, you can pull it apart and restack it so that ends are with ends. And then I'm going to do this again. And this time I'm going to shingle, I'm going to step it up. So 1 inch is going to cover this last fold. 1 inch is going to get stabbed. And then the last inch is going to fold over. And they do all different things. Like some of them have a gradual change to yellow. Some of them have like a dramatic yellow throat. It just depends on how you want to do it. I'm going to do one blend with our, Greater Bird of Paradise. Greater Bird of Paradise. So I'm going to restack and blend these two colors together. It's going to make a nice canary yellow. Okay, I'm going to do another shingle, same thing. Just moving right on up the chest.
But I think you're thinking crown crane is a rich golden yellow.
Oh, okay, I don't know what I'm thinking. This is too much wool. Got to get some of it off. Okay, a little inch wide piece here. So I'm not quite up under the beak yet. I'm just getting all around the neck and chest. And then I do want to stab this down. Sometimes when we shingle, we leave the fluff, but this is a small bird and they're very crisp looking. So we want to smooth it out. Now, right under the beak, I want to make a little bright yellow kind of throat. So to do that, I'm going to take a 1-inch square of the chick yellow core and a little length of our yellow plumage. I'm going to cut it in half. Just it's a lot to manage in a small space. So, and then just fuzz that out a little bit. And then I want to put a layer of this on top. So a little square inch of core, a thin layer of plumage on top. Now I want to flip it over and I'm going to make a little triangle. So I've got all the fibers going horizontally and I'm going to stab the center line just to establish it. And then I'm going to stab an arrow and I'm going to stab a triangle or the top of a triangle and then fold these sides in. And then the little tip of this triangle, I want to put right up under the beak here. This is a 38. So I'm just stabbing this on. This helps shape his head too, because now we're filling in, filling in a little under here. All right, I like that. I'm going to take some snips and just kind of tease out this strong edge here. If you cut up into it, it's going to look more natural than, cutting across.
It gives it kind of a feathery look.
Oh, does it?
With the little cuts.
I'm too close. All right, I did make myself little notes, so let me see. Shingle up, pure yellow triangle under cut bark for wings and tail. Okay. So do you remember we saved some bark ends? Can I find them? Question.
Your ends?
My ends, yes. Okay, these are my ends. And with the ends, I want to make 2 wings. So what I really want is this tapered, not cut edge. That's going to look the most natural. This one has a little schmutz. So let me fold it under. Okay. And it does not need to be this big. So it's going to go from the shoulder I think their tail is longer than their wings. Yeah. Just over. Let's do the tail first so we know how long the tail is. I don't have, I'm going to have to use a cut edge. Look, about 3 inches. And they have a few like layers to their tail. You could put multiple pieces, but I'm worried that it's going to get too bulky. So I'm just going to create kind of the look of multiple feathers by giving the end, some various cuts here. And then I'm going to stab this a little bit so that it is nice and don't want to be more than 1 inch wide, which I'm kind of close to that. It's got more of a taper. And then I'm going to put this onto his little tail with just a little bit of it hanging over the edge here. Now when we put our wings on, we know where we want them to end relative to the tip of the tail. So I'll use this one on this side. So I think I'm about 3 inches. Need about 3 inches. So I'm going to cut that off. And then I want it to be a triangle, so I'm going to cut that off. Yeah, about like that. Take a look at a photograph and see where the wing edge is relative to the belly. It's kind of high on the bird. It's not all the way down here. So make sure that you get that feature correct. And then this one, about 3 inches. Let me stab this a little bit. So cool. Okay, I'm digging it. We need some greens on here. I'm going to try on the wings. I'm going to try the green parrot, which is your darker green. And I'm going to put some of this fog tussa in there. What else can you tell me about the warbler?
There's a lot of different warbler varieties. However,
yes,
yellow warbler, it says they lay anywhere from 1 to 7 eggs. The incubation period is 10 to 13 days.
Ooh.
I know, that's quick.
I'm going to cut this in half because it's real long for this little bird. So I'm going to cut it in half and restack it to try and get rid of my cut edges. I've made, this is my third bird. I've made them all different ways with just a little bit of wire and some core wool. We still have plenty of core wool left to make another one. Make a few, experiment with color variations and wing. You could experiment with wing techniques. There's a lot of different ways to do this. Okay, I'm going to split this little mix in half. Yeah, that's some fast babies.
That's some fast babies. It says the nestling period is 9 to 12 days.
Yeah.
So within a month, you've had your babies and apparently kicked them out.
So I'm going to put this right on top of the wing. Felt it in. Just leaving a little 1/4 inch of the brown showing, or the gray, whatever we want to call this color. Letting the fringe kind of taper down the back here. And then I'm going to fold this top over. If we just shingle, then the next layer covers the fold. So it's a nice way to get top coat onto something that's on the small side. Okay, and then let's do our other side.
So there's old world warblers and new world warblers.
Oh.
The old world ones tend to be rather drab in color.
Interesting.
It says they are found more in Europe, Asia, Australia, whereas the New World warblers are North and Central America.
Okay.
More brightly colored.
We're so flashy. Us Americans.
Many European warblers have been given special names, like the black cap, the white throat, and the chiff-chaff.
Oh, that's fun.
I like the chiff-chaff.
Yeah, that's fun to say.
Especially with a British accent.
Let's do it.
So if somebody is making a few and they run out of bark for the wings, but they still have
you could just
browns.
You could use the charcoal
and just lay out, do like a little taco edge to get the edge.
Yeah, you could just do a simple taco, like, we wanted to be about 3 inches. So felt that, and then get this nice and crisp.
Roll the edge over. Okay.
Then this is your pretty side. Then hit it with the punch tool.
And they could lay merino on that, or if they wanted to get a little color variety.
You could just keep.
You could
go ahead and put your greens on there. You could do it before you put it on. Okay. I mean, I'm kind of using it to help hold everything down.
Right.
And assess.
Just in case someone had a bark situation that they didn't,
Okay, and now I think I want to change to a nice bright green. So I'm going to mix the green parrot with the lorikeet. Give this a mix. And then again, I'm going to cut this in half. It's just a lot of length to work in a small place. We are talking about making a supply pack. So this whole tutorial, we've been basically working with the Fiber Fairy bundles, but if you do end up with a supply pack, like you'll have the black you need for the eye and any other specifics that we use here. You would have all the wires. So I've got myself a nice little 1-inch tuft, and I'm going to go over the tops of the wings on the back of the head. So, it's not complicated. It takes a little practice to really target everything the way that you want to or need to, I guess. Oh my gosh, so funny. And then fold that back. Got a little lopsided here. I like this is kind of filling in that back of the head that we want it to be nice and flat with the back. Visually, it is. And then on the crown of the head, I'm going to go back to a darker green, I think. Maybe mix a little walnut in so that it's not so it's real easy to felt. So I'm mixing walnut and the green parrot. And then this one, maybe I'll fold it one more time. And I'm trying to decide whether to fold it or just go front to back. I think I'll just try to make it fuzzy and just cover the top of the head with it. So do a good bit of blending. Yeah, I think I'll go this, well, should I go this way? I'll go across. I feel like I need a little. That's a strong needle. So that was a 36. I picked it up and I could tell. So my goal is to bring this right down to meet the chin, right to the front of the beak, covering that last fold on the green that we put on the back. I usually like to teach with a very specific shape, but this is a little bit more like stick it on there and felt it into the right spot.
People should have a picture that they're looking at.
Yeah, it does help. Now, even though I started off going across, I am trying to encourage some fringe so that it blends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to take a little bit of yellow. I'm going to mix chick yellow and the yellow plumage. I'm really going to break it down. Like, I want this to be real fuzzy, real fuzzy and small. And I just want to bring this yellow onto the green a little bit, so I don't have quite such a distinct edge there. So I'm stabbing into the yellow chin, and I'm also bringing the yellow back onto the green a little bit. And I'm trying to keep it real fuzzy so that it's not too distinct. If it does get too distinct, we can use a reverse needle and fuzz it out. But that to me looks better than that.
It's a very small amount of fiber.
Very small amount makes a big difference on these little things. Oh, this is going to be my favorite one. I got to admit, I was just kind of making the bird prior just to just to say I did it, just to know what the fibers needed to be. But yeah, I mean, you can get quite, the more we refine this, the better it's going to look, because like I said, they are really sharp, sharp details. So this is definitely a situation where it pays to work at it and fuss with it. I'm going to find my reverse needle and see what happens if I just... I want to be careful not to pull any gray out. So what's under here is that chick yellow core. So just by disrupting this triangle that we made, I think it's going to smooth everything out. There we go. And then I'm just going to like felt it back down, and it'll be smoother. Now, what I've been doing to help the beak kind of blend, their beaks don't just stop in like a little circle like this. I've been taking a little bit of, let me use the charcoal because it's shorter, a little bit of the gray, tiny bit like this. It's about 2 inches long, but it's real thin. And I'm putting one side on the side. I'm going around the beak, and then I'm bringing the other side to the other side. And that simple ribbon wrap incorporates the beak with the face. And it gives a cute little detail, whether it's realistic or not, to the side of the face. Okay, I'm going to put a black eye, which is just a tiny bit of black wool. And I might even put I might even put a little bit of yellow over the eye. We're going to check in 1 second. So I've got a little tuft of black. I'm going to split it in half and just roll it in my fingers to make 2 little beady eyes that are hopefully the same size. What? Yeah. The eye is, it's kind of, yeah, centered in the head, even with the beak. When I'm stabbing eyes on, I'm coming around the edge and going in towards the center, like so from edge to center, kind of like tucking that 2D felted piece around the foam so that it just gets tighter and smaller. I don't stab in the center very much because I want the roundness. And then let's try just a little bit of yellow on top of the eye. This is that yellow blend that I broke down a ton, meaning I'm like basically ripping the plumage. Let's see how this looks. I like it. I'm just concentrating it in a little line over the eye. Doesn't that look cute?
So some people are probably going to be very specific bird people.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure.
And get the exact details right.
And plant people, you know, like this is we're taking on a lot here with the specifics, but this little bird, like I said, you could make a robin, you can make a chickadee, you can make whatever you want. I could try a white dot in the eye. It would be better with a little bit of Serafina white than with the merino, but I might try it. All right, I'm going to try it with the merino. So I do want to break this so it's not so long. And then get the smallest amount I can. It's a little bit big. I'm going to split this in half. Looking for a 40 twist, which I found. Even a 42 would work well here. That it is the smallest amount of wool. It's, the white dot can go wrong if it gets too big. Yeah. I like him. And we got the right shape there. Can sit right there. So to attach the bird, has a little pin in him. If you really wanted it affixed, I would maybe do a stitch, or you could have power pole.
It's fun to be able to move them around.
It is fun to be able to move them around. All right, we're going back to the front here. So, yeah. It is fun to be. I mean, it would be fun if he could be like perched kind of anywhere. But some positions are definitely going to need something to stick him.
Even if he had legs and toes, he wouldn't necessarily be able to perch.
Yeah, I mean, toes would be little toes that could curl around. So that is your project. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun, though. And yeah, and a lot of potential for variation in what this branch is. So there could be a winter scene.
No flowers.
No flowers. Your background could be distant, like in this picture. So we're looking through the tree into a distant background. So I hope that you enjoyed this and will take it and run with it in any direction that you dream up. But this combo works really well. And people are always saying, how do I frame my 2D? So even if this didn't have a 3D element, the idea of the foam inside of a stretcher or a panel. Now they only make these cradled panels so big, but you could still, this is still built on foam and pushed and anchored into the frame.
Were you going to show how to put it in that frame?
Yes, good idea. This guy might fall off, or is he stuck on there? Okay, so there is a tool. This is what I was talking about. A special tool that it's like a staple gun, but instead of going down, it shoots this special framing staple in. So you put that on the side and shoot this staple in, and then you use a staple gun on top of it, and that holds it all down. Now, alternatively, they make their little Z-shaped or S-shaped metal hardware that the tiny screw goes in here and a tiny screw goes in here, and they hold it down. But basically, you've got to find yourself some framing supplies or a local framer that can put that together for you. It's not complicated. It's just, you just need to have the right things. Framing's a little bit specialized. I just want to stab on my little bird and make him just perfect. But I'm not gonna do it now. Yeah, I think that's it, right? We're good. So thank you for checking this out. I hope you try it or some version of this project and then share it on our group, which is called Serafina Felting Fanfare. That's on Facebook. And you can, if you haven't joined already, please do, because lots of support and communication and inspiration there. Can't wait to see. Thanks so much. It's satisfying once you get the hang of it. I overuse that word. I used to use that word to get my kids to do stuff. I'm like, come weed the patio. It's really satisfying.
It's satisfying. I'm like, wait, which word?